All right. We here. Let's check the phone and see, confirm that it's working. I need. Fuck. I didn't say. Great. Awesome. It worked. Fantastic. Hello, folks. Oh shit. Quite the undertaking we all just had together. Right? It's tiring. I'm glad that it's over. As I said, I have been working on this for so long. I worked on this script nearly every day for 2.5 years, arguably. Not 2.5. 2 and like 2 months. That's fine. Yeah, like I started writing like the bare bones pieces of the script in June of 2023. So it was like ideas and thoughts leading up to the start of the testing, and then throughout the testing, and then obviously, and I had like 17,000 words, something like that, by the time I got the test results that are like, yeah, you need to delete literally every single thing you've written, start over. I said in the thing, like, a novel's worth of words have been deleted, and that was not an exaggeration. I think all told, I probably wrote around 100,000 words for this, and in the end, it's about 18,000. So, a whole lot more was cut out than kept in. I thought, whatever it might be. Yeah. No, you heard a much earlier version. I largely rewrote it like twice. So some stuff actually came back, like some stuff that had been in there, like I fully just got rid of, and then I put it back in the last version, which was kind of funny that like it was gone for a year. And then I was like, nope, should have just done it. Should have just trusted my gut the first time, which is really the message of this whole fucking thing. I got myself a dessert as to eat as congratulations to myself for this thing finally being done. There's some technical problems which deeply frustrated me. And I wish I could fix them, but I can't, and that is just whatever. I think it's probably collectively less than like 15 seconds of screen time where it's visible. And in an hour and 54, that's not a lot, though it still bothers me. But it is what it is. Hold on. So what do people think? Some of the people here have heard versions of it. Julia has heard like 7 versions of it. So she has really seen the progression in a way that no one else really has. Other people, I think the most anyone else had heard was 2. But yeah, I've been increasingly curious as we get to the final, or like as it now is out in the world, what folks thought, think, whatever. Obviously it's a very specific sort of performance. Like I genuinely don't think that anyone has ever made anything precisely like it in terms of like, you know, the name obviously harkens a little bit back to Alexander Avila's video. But it was not inspired really in any way by that. Like the actual visual inspiration was Drew Michaels' self-titled comedy special where he's just like in a void yelling. I wanted to do that, but with the notes, like with this presentation, like basically I wanted it to look exactly like it did, like nailed it. Originally I was hoping to do it like in a black box, which would have been logistically challenging for a lot of different reasons. Also, it would have been much more expensive, or differently. I mean, it's not like it was free. It would have been differently expensive. I'll just show you what it looked like in my living room. So, I mean, you're seeing one of the pieces of it here, because this is not what my living room normally looks like. I don't just keep this wall up, but this is a funny picture. So, you know, we just put up giant, you can't really see it. Just giant black walls. And then my TV was here. And so like the TV is the thing that I'm running it off of. And because it's an OLED screen, the black pixels emit no light. So it really does look like it's just coming from nowhere. Which I was very happy that it worked out that way. Yeah, it was a whole and then like the camera was on a slider and it was being run, you know, by Kyle, as I mentioned the thing. Like in an early the earlier versions, I like called out the fact that it's like, we're about to do this one take, buddies. And in the end I was like, nope, you'll just see it. You'll know. You'll know because it will happen. I think I can make this a little brighter. Looking at my screen, it looks darker than it looks like on that screen. Yeah. I figured, you know, at some point I will read like an earlier version of the intro here. I think it'll be here a little while. Because I think it'd be interesting for people to hear, yeah, sort of some of the things that had gone. There's only really one thing I wish I had been able to keep. But I couldn't really make it fit without it being too much of a tangent, which was that one of the big things about the way I act around and to other people is I basically try to model the behavior that I want from other people. Like when I'm at a concert, if there are short people behind me and there's no tall people in front of me, like I will lower my stance in order to like help them see better, right? I do like things like that, like just sort of small things that just make life easier. And you could, and that gets this question of like, am I empathetic, right? But I'm not doing that per se because of empathy. I just like, again, we live in a society and I can't call people, you know, pieces of shit if I do the things that I'm accusing them of. So I feel like, well, if like I guess I have to do it because no one else will. But a lot of a lot of what I do is that, because I just want people to, be in a society, right? Like to function around people and to like not be so fucking selfish all the time. Like about everything you do, like don't fucking be loud if you're in a quiet place. Like, when I'm on a train and it's a quiet car and there are people on the fucking phone, it's like I wish we could throw you out of the train, right? Like I don't want that person to die per se, but like they shouldn't be allowed to be there. And if they like break a shoulder, that's fine. I'm not gonna feel bad about that, but I couldn't really make that fit. And that's fine. I mean, I was editing this fucking thing until like 2 days before. Like, I mean, so I shot this a week ago, right? I shot this last Saturday. And I spent a week dealing with some like color, like there was technical problems, and that's why like the fucking bottle disappears. Like there's like a strip of the frame that like the bottle disappears from, which makes me so upset, but it is what it is. Right. So I like straight until the last the last day, like on Friday, I was making tweaks. Like I made some substantial tweaks, like not even tweaks, like substantive changes in the last week, because like the video came out like 3 days after that murder suicide was reported in the Wall Street Journal. Like obviously I did not talk about that because it hadn't happened yet, right? And I kept trying to make it as current as it could possibly be, because things kept happening that were, again, and whatever, I acknowledge this in the thing, it's like they changed the context. I mean, the article about Adam Rain came out a week before that, right? Like that wasn't in there. Like all that stuff came in right at the end, which is weird because of how key it feels in retrospect to that sort of transition. But whatever, it's fine. That's life. But no, ultimately, like other than those sort of technical hiccups and like whatever, I said some wrong words. That's what happens when you talk for almost 2 hours straight. It is what it is. I don't, but I am happy with the final result. And I hope I really do hope it helps someone, like I hope that someone gets out of it what I could have, because that's who it was for, right? It was for me 2 years ago. Like it's for like I am trying to be like I'm trying to make the video that I couldn't make, or that I couldn't see, I couldn't find at the time. And it's like not a lot of people on the internet will admit that they're wrong. Like an early version described it as why I left the alt-right but for self-diagnosis. Like that's the closest sort of genre as I could think of for this. People don't like admitting they're wrong. They really don't. But I think it's important that we do. And, it's important that we understand what we understand and understand what we don't understand. And that's the thing that people are very bad at. And it's very hard to know what you don't know. but assuming you're a dumb, wrong, idiot boy about something is often better than not, right? Like it's usually a better starting point. And so I try to approach things that way when, at least sometimes I'm just like, nah, I know. Because sometimes you just know. Right. I mean, and especially when it relates to like morality, right? Like I've obviously been thinking a lot about the assassination of Charlie Kirk by seemingly just an ultra online, probably right-wing kid. And where I sort of stand on it is, it's like, I don't care at all, right, about what happened. I don't think he deserved to die, but he deserved to be forgotten. Like, that's what I want, right? Like, I don't want like all of these right-wing grifters to die. I just want them to lose power and relevance. Like that's what they deserve. And and so like I'm not going to mourn. But that's also like that's not what I want, right? Like if I could control everything, like that's not the outcome. Like they would just go to jail. But then, we abolish the prisons with them in it, whatever. Funny joke. It is funny. So obviously I wrote the script to be funny. And I did, I think it's funny, right? I laughed. I did a couple of run-throughs with people and like asked them to keep their mics on so I could hear where they were laughing. Kyle and Ryan, who were in the room, like they had heard a run-through like 3 days before. Excuse me. And they sort of got the laughs out of the way so that they didn't, because they were like, if it had been like a full crowd, which at one point I was considering, like, what if I like did this as a show and really like had people, thank you, like then I would like have an audience and just be like, do it, laugh, like be that. But because it was just two people, like just having like a single ha every once in a while probably wouldn't have worked. And it does, it has sort of the same effect that Drew Michaels set had, where like you're like totally out of context for, and you're just like looking at a guy screaming into a literal void. And that adds to sort of the oddity of what it is. And I like that about it. Like the fact that, I mean, that there is someone there because the camera is moving, but you don't actually, but it does feel like I'm just alone in true blackness. Just yelling about my mental illnesses. It's very, very funny. Like, broadly speaking, I find it very funny. This is too much. I'm gonna go put this back in the fridge. Uh-huh. Danielle was very mad at me that I didn't bring up the cat. Like, She, like, in the last couple days, she was like, what the fuck, dude? Why would you not bring up the cat? I was like, because the cat has nothing to do with literally any part of this. And you're like, it seems like bullshit, but okay, I'll be back in a sec. I will play the song about me being sad in my absence. There was a point, like right at the beginning, I was like, I wonder, should I like release a song the same way I did with the 30 video? And then I didn't do that.
I've lost all sense to tell if the prescriptions are working. Orange bottles filled with pills and shelves to make me stop hurting. I am learning every day, feeling exactly the same way. What else is left to say? Maybe I get what I'm deserving. Time is pressed into my back like a knife, pushing me into a starless night. Regardless if I'm thinking right, the darkness suffocates, my breathing gets tight. Got no senses to fight. I reach out blindly without finding anything that might return my light. But that seems unacceptable when I am looking at my lot, contemptible even for someone who was born with what I got. To pass up the opportunity put unto me, did I miss the shot and slap the face of those that society never gives a spot? Taught to be the protagonist, but I'm clearly off the path. Thought to just be adequate and barely manage that. Want to be compassionate, but I'm not sure what that takes when I am caught in this paralysis. I've lost myself to fakes. A privileged upbringing at the box with your head when your head is fucked up already. Cause you've seen all the good things that they should bring. How the fuck are you not happy? And you know no one should care, so you have to grin and bear it while internalizing hatred, but where you can't share it. So you just stare in the full-length mirror, judging every glare and flaw to your cause to tear it. How dare
I think the strong MySpace is anyway, but with this. I said the lyrics wrong. That's fine. Point is, hello, I'm back. What a song. There are parts of it that I still think are good, and there are parts of it that are like, it's a little awkward. I could have phrased that differently and phrased it better. That's how I feel about all of my things. Yeah, maybe someday I will release a song about how not autistic I am, but I feel like in the last fucking month of it, like starting like end of July, like the sort of public attacks were becoming more sort of prevalent, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, why am I making a video about how I'm not, like, what the fuck is this? What a weird fucking thing to do. And yeah, I mean, like, it's, whatever. Ultimately, I still did it, but I that was part of, like, towards the end, I reframed it. Like, I changed, I think, because it's like, what am I actually talking about? That was actually when I fully rewrote the beginning again, because I was like, it is like, what I'm trying to talk about is at like a base level misinformation and misunderstandings, right? Like the way that people, find information and the way people sort of understand themselves and understand the world and how those things, collect to be this, right? And that's a weird, it's a weird thing to talk about, right? It's a hard thing to talk about, but I at an earlier version, I had sort of in the earliest bit, I went hard in that. And then I like de-emphasized the sort of importance, like the info gathering. Like I removed all references to ChatGPT at one point for like a while, like, or as like a single, like offhanded allusion. The earliest version was all about, like, really about TikTok and ChatGPT and how they were to whatever. Let's see, do I still have that? I don't know. I overwrote most versions of these things. So this one. What version is this? Oh, this is old. This is from when I thought I was autistic. Wow. Yeah, to give you a sense of like what this is just like the first few paragraphs of the earliest. I think this was the earliest version. The most useful piece of writing advice I got during my internship at the Daily Beast came from Jimmy So, then a culture editor who left to edit Columbia Global Reports and now teaches at their journalism school. He told me that every story needs an angle and that everything I write should be in service of that angle. We were discussing two stories. The first was a review of the Claire Denis film Bastards, which I did not particularly like, but more so found deeply confusing. The other was a review of the just-released Xbox One, which I had seen as kind of a beta test of a particular vision of gaming the hardware wasn't able to actually deliver on. But while those stories could work, especially given my truly bizarre interview with Claire Denis, after which she asked the PR rep to see if I was okay, I had failed to account for my audience. That Bastards review would have been fine on a film blog, especially when run by a bunch of people getting paid in exposure. But on the Daily Beast, they're not going to put something with so little insight on the front page next to serious thinkers and actual journalism, and they shouldn't. Likewise, the Daily Beast was and is not a gaming publication, so anything I wrote about games needed to be framed for a general audience, one that probably doesn't care about Microsoft's vision for gaming, but might care that the company wanted to put an always-on camera front and center in everyone's living room a year before Alexa would be announced and fundamentally reshape the access people would give to megacorporations in the name of minor convenience. So I just put more focus on that, and Jimmy subtitled it "The Ever-Classic Big Brother is Watching You." I'm not sure how often I succeeded in heeding this advice. I've never been particularly good at putting myself in someone else's shoes, understanding specifically the nebulous needs of this general audience. But that's what the editors were for, to get and keep me on track. When I filed a story on Cyberpunk that opened with a statement about crunch culture, my editor sent it back and said that what people really wanted to know is why their timelines were filled with gifs of glitchy penises, and my brief reference to some of the sillier bugs needed an entire paragraph at least to justify the headline he knew would get clicks. I'm sure you'll be shocked to hear that I don't have an editor for this channel. But even so, I've tried to keep Jimmy's words in mind and give each review some core that my myriad tangents would hopefully not completely distract from. But who is my audience? I've never really known. Which was, I think, the fundamental tension at the heart of this YouTube channel. I didn't know who I was writing for. Maybe it was for me. I've certainly enjoyed going back to my older videos. But I don't think that's actually right. For the first year, when my scripts were more reasonable in length, I ran everything by my girlfriend. I needed to know how someone other than myself would take my words. Were they coherent? Was I being extra, the fun kind or the off-putting kind? Would I want the kind of people I might put off on me in the first place? And that was helpful, and I appreciated it, but I also felt bad. And by the time the channel subscriber count was solidly in the 4 digits, I felt confident enough in my general ability to present an argument that I stopped asking. I may not have known how other people would take it, but if we're being honest, neither did my girlfriend. So I just went with my gut. But there were exceptions, times where I felt extra perspective was necessary. This is one of them. So was the discussion of my voluntary sterilization. In that case, I asked 2 of my patrons, one who wasn't planning on having kids and one who's already had multiple. And one of the most useful bits of feedback I got harkened back to what I had been told a decade earlier. Know who I'm talking to, because early versions of that script started by hedging what I had been saying by the end. But why? Why was I ceding ground to some imagined adversary who I don't care about and have never considered making videos for? So what if someone got mad at my saying that spanking your kids is child abuse? It objectively is, and that person is pro-child abuse. Fuck them. I don't care about anything they have to say. But when I sat down to word vomit my thoughts about autism, I took the wrong lesson. Because my initial thought was to use my newfound diagnosis as a shield, to go full right-wing comic, albeit from a more personal place. I realized immediately how dumb that was because, even if we all agree that random, your favorite Twitter replacement users who complain about harmless jokes by pleading autism are annoying, who would actually enjoy watching me dunk on those people for literally any amount of time? Children. probably, as well as the dregs of society, neither of which are groups I've ever wanted to appeal to. And you are what you appeal to. If you let Nazis into the bar, you're a Nazi bar now. And I look like I could run one of those. So I've made an active effort to tell people that I don't want them here, throwing offhand comments in specifically to make sure that if a video were to hit the algorithm, the wrong people wouldn't take the wrong thing away. And this has gotten me plenty of criticism from people I enjoyed insulting and blocking, and plenty of praise from people I enjoyed talking to, many of whom are on the autism spectrum themselves. In retrospect, maybe that was a sign of something, though a bunch of them are also trans, and I remain distinctly not that, so I don't know. This video isn't for them, though. And yeah, so that is the start, and then it goes this far. So very long. There's a section where I had an entire hello, Megan. That's an interesting question. So I think the way it affected me is that I felt more confident that like a certain, and this is actually not even necessarily the Discord, but like once the Patreon was live and it's sort of the same deal, that like once that was in place, there's sort of a way to see in a more real sense, like, okay, this is the this is an audience, but also like if these people do not like a video, like if I can't convince them of at least the validity of my argument, even, obviously you don't all agree with everything I've ever said, nor should you, right? But like, if I write something and, Willow, Julia, Phil, Werner are like, man, you fucked up. Like this was a bad take, right? Like I would feel that in a different way. And I would care less about what sort of like randos would say relative to sort of the more like, I guess, insular community that had built up, right? Like your opinions, like when I say that my life would be better or my life would be the same without you, I actually considered putting a note behind me and being like, unless you're one of the people who my life is better with, right? And like I would put, most largely speaking, like the folks on the Discord as like an example of like people, my life is better for y'all being into it. Right. And so I put that in the end, right? Like talking about the audience and so I did call it out in that way. And I mean, those are the kinds of people who are going to make it to the end. I really have zero fucking clue what, like, I don't think I'm going to look at the analytics. I kind of don't want to know. Like I put in so much fucking time and effort and just like at least hundreds of hours and possibly at least 1,000 hours all told. Probably not 1,000, but like many hundreds for sure. Like between all of it. And that, like there's kind of no amount of popular, I guess, there's no view count that like makes that worth it, right? Like I don't care. Like it would be cool. I would like the video to get at least a couple thousand views. But like I don't care really anymore. Like I've just got so far past like it doesn't matter. It needed to be done. It needed to be out of my life. What I care about actually is I hope that it helps people. I hope that it helps someone. Like if someone's like, hey man, like I understand myself better, I understand the world better, like that matters, given what this is, that matters to me infinitely more than any number of just like individual views could ever. I like that's what I care about. Like I want to help people understand things the way that I understand them, and just sort of understand a different perspective the same way that like all of my favorite, YouTubers, creators, blah, 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 like the way they do, like the way they make me feel like a dumb, wrong idiot boy, right? Like I want people to come away being like, oh yeah, I never thought of it that way. Or even if you had, maybe not collectively. Like the thing about a 2-hour video, the 2-hour performance, is that you can just have so much in it and you can bring all kinds of things together, right? Like you can have ideas that are gone for an hour and then come back in and relate to this thing, and they help fill in a gap, like in an idea. And it's like, you think that this thing is kind of not important, and then by the end you're like, oh shit, I actually like on the second listen, on the second watch, whatever, you realize how it all fits together and what all of it is about. All right, enjoy your pizza. I don't have any idea how long this will be, so Godspeed, or whatever. So I've been trying to, that's what I try to do, and this one more than most because of just what it is, right? Like it is a plea, I guess, for people to be careful in where they find their information, in what they believe, in how they believe it, and in what they do with that information they believe. There's that recent Philosophy Tube video about how she was like about to do, she'd like written a whole script about something and then found out that the entire premise of the video was just incorrect, right? And it's like done a bunch of research, but all of the research was about this, like, just, it was based on this fundamentally flawed perception. And it's like, that's bad, right? And like there are some people whose understanding of things for sure has been shaped by the way I my channel has, like, it still gets views every day, not a lot, obviously. I check the comments every once in a while. People are very mean to me. Largely. It's funny. I actually, like, the most popular video of mine is my shorts review of Sunshine, which people fucking hate. They really do not like that take. Which, I mean, it's the correct take, so I don't really care that they don't like it, but that's what it is. Let's look at my channel. How many views do you have? 1.7 million views, right? Like, And since most people who watch my videos never subscribed, whatever, I would say that's at least 1 million different people have clicked on one of my videos and watched it for 30 seconds or whatever it needs to do to count as a view. That's fucking crazy. And in that, at least someone has, like, I've said something wrong that someone has internalized, or someone has misunderstood something I said and internalized a wrong thing as a result of it. And like, I don't feel good about that. So it was very important to me that I get this as right as possible. So even if someone just sort of took everything at face value and then, repeated it or whatever, that it would, that they would not have been led astray. Yeah, there's not a lot of folks in this thing. I assume part of it is that people are still watching the video, maybe, or others are just like, I'm not gonna watch the video, so what is the point of watching the post-mortem? If they're just talking about something that they're not gonna watch because they don't feel like watching an hour 54-minute thing, or they'll watch it later and then maybe catch with this later. I'm going to read a different intro. So this was actually, there was a point where I thought I am going to, I'm going to put one section of it on this channel and then do the entire thing and post it on what was supposed to be the new channel. And I've just given up. I don't care about that other channel. That was fun. I'm really curious how much of it they watched. Like, at what point was it like, this is relatable? I'm genuinely pretty curious about that. That was fun. I mean, I tagged Alexander Avila, Savannah Brown, and the Leftist Cooks in the thing. So I was like, there's a non-zero chance. I actually thought there was a non-zero chance in particular that the Leftist Cooks would watch it, because they seem to be much more sort of interested in that kind of thing. Like, they link to a lot of other videos and whatever. I thought there's a non-zero chance. I was surprised that it happened so quickly and that it happened like that. I thought it was very nice of Neely to say that, I appreciated that. But yeah. So yeah, that was nice. I appreciated it for sure. I don't know if Savannah Brown or Alexander Avila will click. I didn't even know for a really long time that if you @ someone in your description, like, it shows up in their thing. I genuinely just didn't even realize that. And like, I had tagged someone and then they showed up in my comments. I was like, why? And I was like, oh yeah, because I was just like, I was using some of their footage, and I was like, well, obviously I'm gonna link to them. But it's like, but it makes sense that, yeah, of course, if you link to someone, they would be notified that they have been linked to. Like, that makes sense in retrospect, but at the time I hadn't thought about it. But yeah. So I had thought, okay, I'm gonna do an introduction to an older version on this channel, and it would be the last thing I ever posted on this channel. And then I would link to the new channel and the full, the full version, right? Which would be different. And so I'm just going to read And this was actually one that I had done the presentation for. I did a different version of the presentation. Almost all of it was deleted. I liked this version, and I think it's interesting because you hear bits of it that did end up in the final thing, but in very different contexts or in very different ways. So this is kind of the last version before it got rewritten again. My favorite part of a cinematic double feature comes after all the credits have rolled, when my brain starts trying to connect the disconnected works. Like, memes aside, Barbenheimer paired really well as dueling depictions of larger-than-life figures confronting the messiness of humanity and the parts they played in making that mess. Seeing Anatomy of a Fall and American Fiction back-to-back let me more fully appreciate the different takes on a character losing control of their narrative, reminders of how susceptible we are to a good story, particularly when it confirms our priors. It's kind of bizarre that Escape, about a North Korean soldier trying to defect south, and Hijack 1971, about a South Korean civvy threatening a plane to go north, released stateside on the same day, but it was to each his benefit. Neither even attempts a nuanced portrayal of the peninsula's conflict, but together they paint a more complicated picture that enriches both. I could do this all day. Goodfellas and Bad Boys are two sides of what the war on drugs has done to our society and solid reminders that all cops are bastards. But I think I've made my point. Your fixations might be different, but we all love connecting dots to some degree or another, finding patterns in the chaos. Apophenia, it's called. It's why we love statistics and also why they're dangerous. You think about any two subjects long enough, you will start to see threads. Like, at face value, the two most significant tech releases of the last 10 years, TikTok and ChatGPT, don't have a ton in common. But both the video consumption/creation platform and the anthropomorphized text generation service culminated decades of digital and societal trends, reflecting the worst of our culture, the least of it, and maybe even on occasion something approximating its best. Both began as, and at least one remains, deeply unprofitable ventures supported by massive war chests that allowed a growth at all costs mindset to ingratiate and ingrain them into the collective consciousness so that when they could one day make the turn towards profit at all costs that Cory Doctorow calls enshittification in what Ed Zitron calls the rot economy. And of course, their leaders epitomize corporate hubris. Sam Altman's habitual lying resulted in a very public ousting by a board trying to perhaps save its company's soul, but employees revolted at the prospect that this subsidiary of a nonprofit might actually care about something other than profit, and I just wish every single one of them the worst. TikTok continues its algorithmic supremacy where the GPTs have long since stopped improving in a way that benefits the average user. But look where that got them. Remember Shozi Chu's weird plea that was pushed to users to push their representatives? That may well have been the push needed for the freaks in Washington to attach its metaphorical time bomb to funding for real ones. But who knows if that law ever actually gets enforced. It wasn't always so bad, though. Both TikTok and ChatGPT offered genuinely new and conceptually compelling ways to search, even if they resulted in Alphabet rushing objectively worse competitors to market, diminishing YouTube and Google in basically every way. And of course, Meta got in on them too, because anytime anyone has a vaguely interesting idea, Zuckerberg and co. are there to buy it up or rip it off. But the similarity most relevant to me and to this one-sided conversation we're about to have is their propensity for presenting utter bullshit with the utmost confidence, leaving them unable to truly fill the gap caused by Google's own profit-at-all-costs obsession. And that's terrible for everyone and also society, but it's especially frustrating for folks who love deep diving on subjects that barely affect us and that no one we know cares about. I have feelings about different business models of new email newsletter platforms and the trade-offs countries make in their approach to healthcare. I unfortunately pay way more attention to U.S. politics than all of my friends probably combined and know anything and therefore way too much about the options for image reconstruction used by video game developers. This ability to intake and retain a wide, if not always deep, variety of fairly technical information is why I'm pretty good at my day job. It's also why I can end up monologuing for 45 minutes at people I've just met about why I don't like cryptocurrency. In my defense, one of them asked, and maybe she knew what she was getting into. I am a white man after all, and we've got a reputation to uphold. But I also felt weird about it, pausing multiple times to confirm that I should keep going. Because I'm well aware that any time I open my mouth, I'm adding to the already excruciating volume of information out in the world, and I don't want to add to the slop that's being shoveled into her and my and your faces by feeds and recommendations driven by algorithms that don't know what matters, overseen by people who don't care what's right. Trying to parse all that, let alone fact check it, is at least a full-time job, and I've already got one of those. I don't want another. Not that one anyway. So I build my bubble, set my guidelines. Podcast bros, entirely bad. Video essayists, mostly good. The regurgitations of stochastic parrots obviously require verification, but the narration of kids from their driver's seats, whatever. Sure. And I'm sure that much of what I have learned from those kids and their content compatriots is just as wrong as the regurgitations, maybe more so. It matters less to me personally because I've never used TikTok as a search engine. I don't scroll for facts. I scroll for jokes and oddities and people. People are interesting. The ways they present themselves, the stories they tell, and what they want to share with the world. Sometimes their ideas are bad, and sometimes they're beautiful, and sometimes they're probably just lying. But every so often, there's some nugget of information I can dig into later, like the time I learned that the concept we all derisively deem the Oppression Olympics has a more academic name, and a pretty dramatic one at that, the Race to Innocence, or Race to the Margins. It was coined in 1998 by Mary Louise Fellows and Shereen Razak in their article, The Race to Innocence Confronting Hierarchical Relations Amongst Women, which is centered on competing marginalities, the tendency for people to focus on their own sense of oppression and refuse to see the way that they are complicit in perpetuating others. As members of an oppressed group, they believe they must be innocent. I'm sure you understand this, that poor whites typically don't feel privileged, nor do queer men, nor do et cetera, and while that may not matter academically, it's absurd to pretend like there aren't genuine hardships there. But what happens when you don't have those hardships, when you're at the top of the intersection, if you're on it at all, yet feel that you deserve a place in the conversation? That is not fair that being born into objectively enviable circumstances means you don't get to speak for anyone who you might want to speak for. What do I do? Because I've got no margins to race to. Maybe you could count my lifetime of mental illness, but I don't. That's what this is about, though, my mental illness. Also TikTok, kind of YouTube, definitely not movies or large language models, but a diagnosis that would have felt as ridiculous to me at 18 as this generative AI bubble does here in my 30s. One that would have kept feeling ridiculous had that sweet, sweet algorithm not spoonful of sugared me into unfounded conviction. What a weird way to say that. Autism. It's about autism. Spectrum disorder. Which, if you somehow missed the headline, I don't have. A fact reiterated throughout these 37 pages results from a full neuropsychological evaluation. I began September of 2023 and finished 5 months later. It is an imperfect document, but still worth the nearly $1,000 I paid for it, and certainly the other 9 my insurance did, as well as the 10 and change hours I spent being interviewed and supervised by 3 different psychologists over the course of those months. So my confidence in these results is matched by my confidence that I could have paid $800, no insurance accepted, to some diagnostic mill, spent 2 hours on Zoom, and received a single sheet of paper telling me something different. Even this report says Alec can appear as if he is on the spectrum shortly before all caps bold underline saying I'm not. Until I read those words, I thought this video would be my version of the increasingly popular autism coming out story. I was so sure, in fact, that I wrote a script even longer than this in preparation, almost none of which survived. And that's too bad, because I spent many dozens of hours on it, and there were some good words in there, but you got to kill your darlings. And for me, that idea that I was autistic had become my darling. I was really stuck in it, to the point where 3 weeks before my final session, I told a friend that I wasn't sure I would believe a negative result because a toxic mix of false confidence, sunk cost, and a misunderstanding of the testing itself made me feel like I needed it. And I hate that, because it's really bad. Fortunately, it was also wrong. The younger me was right, so were my parents and plenty of other people. Though certainly not everyone. One guy was so wrong that my initial explanation convinced him he had autism. I should probably call him. If you're where I was 2 years ago, maybe you've been inundated by the very same TikToks and memes and YouTuber coming outs that I was and frankly still am. Maybe you viscerally rejected the responses, which typically take the form of smug faces scolding you for trying to understand who, what, and why you are. I don't know if they're wrong about you, but it doesn't matter that they were right about me. This is the video that I wish I had seen back then. A person on the internet admitting that they were wrong and telling a story that I could see myself in, but not one that was about me. One of those classic why I left the alt-rights, but for self-diagnosis. And maybe it did exist, drowned out by everything else. Almost certainly someone will say the same thing down the line, not knowing about this video. but I want to take you through my journey, my adventure from having actively rejected the prospect that I could be autistic to thinking, well, maybe, to, oh, probably, and then being told absolutely not and having to process that. Because it turns out that I'm more mentally ill and neurologically diverse than I knew. But I don't think that changes where I stand at the intersection. I'm not sure anything other than autistic could have, nor if even that would have. But I don't get to answer that question. So instead, I'm just going to talk around it for a really long time in a single, unedited shot. But not this shot. What you just heard is in fact not the introduction to my video about not being autistic. It is one of several binned introductions that I thought might be a fun little teaser to the actual video, which is on a different channel. The Week I Review is over, and this video isn't a return. It almost was, but during the glut of YouTuber retirements at the start of last year, noted brother of the guy whose book I flew to London to review for even more time than this, Hank Green, said he believes that work on this platform should be measured not in videos, but entire channels. The Week I Review then was my first LP, my debut season of television. From reviewing the idea of starting a YouTube channel to imagining the paths I didn't take in the years that followed while discussing everything everywhere all at once, I created a mostly consistent, mostly good, and even occasionally great body of work that deserved an ending, and I'm happy with the one it got. I'll miss having 16,000 subscribers and monetization, but maybe they'll join me on the new channel. Maybe you will. If not, fair enough. I'm not really sure what will come from it anyway. Honestly, I don't really have any desire to build up another channel from nothing. But I felt like this project at least was worth seeing through. Thank you one last time for your support on this channel. Now I have to do the real thing. Back to one, everybody. So that was originally going to be here, and then I just didn't do that. So I didn't call him, but I did talk to him eventually. I'm not even sure. He didn't even seem to remember that he had felt that way because he did not seem to react to the revelation. But the important thing is that it is done, right? So yeah, that was an earlier version. But as you can see, like there are ideas that survived. Some of those left and then came back. As I said, I stopped talking about ChatGPT entirely for a while. That was actually an older draft than I had remembered. Because that was before I started talking about suicide. Yeah, I talked way less about suicide in earlier drafts. And then at some point I was like, nah, it feels like the most important thing. Feels like an important way to start this. Partially because it's like, if like the 30th word you say is suicide or whatever, like then it's just, you're setting expectations, right? It's like save the cat or kill the dog or whatever that screenwriting thing is. Like you set the expectations immediately so that people know what they're in for. And it's like by starting this off by talking about gun deaths and suicide, it's like regardless of what comes after that, it's like that is the tenor with which everything else is presented. And so I feel fine about that, with that, whatever. But yeah, any I think like when I was cutting it, because towards the end I was like, I just need to make this thing shorter. It was very important to me that I did not say unalive or whatever other bullshit, because it's like, I mean, the video got monetized, right? Like people act as though saying words it's just not true, right? Like there are definitely things you can talk about that will result in suppression or whatever. But like one of my most popular videos, like I talk about rape like a lot, which is my review of X. My review of Salo, was actually funny. It's one of the only, it's like the only video I've ever had that got demonetized, but then I got it remonetized. Because I was like, this is not, like, there's nothing objectionable in here. That's not true. I did a video about the 2020 election, and that got demonetized because it's controversial or whatever. But like, you know, I talked about all kinds of heavy fucking subjects, and it never got me it never got me demonetized, never got me banned, it never got, you know, any of those things. And so when people are like, yeah, you have to say unaliving and whatever, it's just like, that's just not true. Because like, even if something was true for, I don't know, a week, like, whatever algorithm that would block people for saying kill would also block people for saying unalive, right? Like, you know, you can't just keep doing that if it was ever actually a problem in the first place. You know, like, unalive is not really a more palatable word. It's just a word that, you know, was presumed like, oh, that people will be fine with this. Like, it's so fucking weird to me when people, like, you know, hearing what people do and don't censor, like self-censor. Like, I think the funniest self-censorship I've ever seen was on the channel Cruel World Happy Mind, where she did an ad for like a sex toy shop, and, you know, she talked about, you know, masturbating, and like, you know, it's like, it's so great up against my clit and whatever, and then she like censors the word kill and is like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you think that the bot is like cares, like what the fuck, dude? You know, it's just like that. It's just like objectively dumb, right? And so yeah, I find that kind of thing so fucking irritating, because it is not like, the censorship exists, but it is not as, it does not take the precise form that people seem to think it does. Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. And so, you know, that's that. So yeah, I was like, I think I said to Julia, I was like, I don't know, there's like a 25% chance this thing gets demonetized all told. And like, you know, when you upload a video, you like tag, you know, this thing talks about sensitive subjects, but it doesn't show anything, right? Like, this uses bad language, but not like constantly, and it doesn't use slurs, right? Like, I talk about controversial topic, whatever, like, you know, it's like the sort of the least aggressive version of all of these things. And like, safe for ads, you know, and then it gets, checked, you know, an auto checker, and it's fine. Like, it's, you know, it's, they oversell that. I think part of the problem is that, you know, when it's your like, this is not my livelihood, obviously. I get nothing from this now. But like, when it's your livelihood, you have to be much more careful. You know, if you spend 2 years working on something and then it gets demonetized, and like, you know, that would be real bad. It just doesn't matter for me. Like, I would be upset, but it wouldn't change anything. Like, I wouldn't change the script to make it more palatable to an algorithm. It's not for an algorithm, you know? So, yeah, that's where I'm at with all of that stuff. I thought about putting like a content warning about suicide. That was another thing. It's like, I'm just going to start here. So like, you know, it like, you're either in it or you're not right from the beginning, and you can decide if you feel okay hearing that, and if you don't, that's fine. Go do something else. Versus like having it come up 3/4 of the way through and it's talking about how autistic people are more likely to follow through on suicide based on studies, right? Like that would be I would feel worse bringing that up out of nowhere in that context. But also like talking about shooter, I think is important given what one of my diagnoses was, or like one of the things listed in, is suicidal ideation's a diagnosis. I don't know. I'm unconvinced, but yeah, that's the sort of way that I was thinking about it. Yeah. Anyone have any comments, questions, concerns, fun stories about their childhood? I don't know if I'm going to do anything more on this channel. Oh, so okay, my favorite joke is my joke about stim, because it's such a bad joke. It makes me laugh. Whatever. Some of the things I say are acting, right? Like some of my reactions to the things, is like performance, right? To make the moment hit harder. But that one actively makes me laugh. Another one that you actually can't see it because I'm standing in front of it. Another just like really aggressively dumb joke is I say, it's just a weird little thing about me, a quirk, if you will. And behind me it says, insert My Hero Academia joke here. And then I switch to the next one and it says, oh no, I forgot to insert a joke, sad face. And then it moves on to the next one. But like, I find that really funny. And you don't see it, right? Like that's the thing. And that was the idea, right? It's like this thing I spent all this time on is like, you see some of it and you don't see others. And that's just what it is. But yeah, like, so it's like the silly bits are the things that I mean, because so much of it is so serious, right? Like especially some of the stuff I added towards the end, just like it gets pretty dour. And I mean, whatever, it could be much less, it could be so much more dour. It could be so much more serious, so much less light than it is. But it's also, more drama than not. And so the moments that are silly are the moments that I like. Yeah, I like that line. Honestly, there's a lot of lines in there that I like I think are really good. And I was really proud of them. And I mean, there were a lot of lines that I cut that I was really proud of, like, throughout the years. Jesus Christ. I was like, oh man, what a good way to phrase that. And like one of the things that's really irritating about writing over the course of 2 years is that, like, this comes out after there has been a much more public sort of, like, the public sentiment towards LLMs is much more tepid in the wake of GPT-5's release than it was prior to GPT-5's release. And it's like, if I had released this a year ago, it would, like, a lot of parts of it would have been basically the same. And I would have been not a trailblazer, obviously, because, like, I read the work of critics and that's, where a lot of those ideas come from. and whatever, plus my own experience with it. But it would not be like, some of the ideas to me feel a little like, I also think this, right? Like, it's like people, and it is also part of why it's important that it like gets done, because it's like these ideas are no longer unique. A lot of them, like some of them are, and I don't think they've ever been put together in quite this way before. But the ideas themselves are just not as, are not as whatever, you know what I mean, as special. But I wrote them in ways that I am proud of. Like I think it is, like I was tweaking wording until the last day. I was like, I would reread a sentence and I'd be like, there's a better way to read that sentence, or like there's a better way to tweak that sentence. That's nice. I'm happy to hear that. I mean, that's what it's for, right? Like that's what I'm trying to help people understand, if I can help them understand anything. So that's nice. Yeah, I don't know offhand like what my favorite line is, but there were a few of them watching through. I was like, hell yeah, I did that good. I started saying, I don't think so. I genuinely don't know if this is a return or anything. Part of it I do think is like, do a bunch of people watch this video? Because if a bunch of people watch the video, then I don't know, I'm more likely to do something than if no one watches it. I genuinely don't know how it will do and all of that stuff. I don't think it's going to do especially well. But I might come back with things every so often. I definitely have no particular desire to like try to come back with any regularity or try to treat this as anything other than just like an outlet for stuff. I mean, the thing that I want to do is I want to make a short film again. It's been a very long time since I've done that, and it would be, yeah, I mean, basically, yeah, Julia, as a therapist, you should really say, if you want to better understand emotions, just watch this 54-minute video. We can even do it together. Just hold watch parties for all of your clients. That'll be a good a good thing. Yeah. Any other comments, questions, concerns, life hacks? This has been the lowest attended live stream I think I've ever done, which is interesting. It's probably because of what I called it, and so people who didn't watch the video are like, well, I'm going to get nothing from this, which is frankly, I think probably truer than it is not true. But it's fine. I forgive me. The average view duration of the first 3 hours and 18 minutes is 17 minutes. So that ain't bad. But yeah, I don't think I should just I'm just going to remove YouTube Studio from my phone. I don't actually care. The whole living room thing. So I had help. Obviously. It took probably an hour to an hour and a half to do all of the setup. But yeah, like including setting up the lights and setting up everything, it was probably about 90 minutes. In the end, like it was just two of us at the start, and then like I bought a TV, like a rolling TV stand, which is now just in my apartment, and it's like taking up space, and I don't really know what to do with it. Because there's part of me that's like, I really like the way this looks, and it's like, what if I wanted to do something like it again? Because I paid, it's like a $100 TV stand, but also, what the fuck? It's like a $100 TV stand, but also like, if I had rented a theater, that would have been like $500. So as just an amount of money that is just lost to time, like as just like cost of doing business, I don't really feel bad about that, but it's like right here, like my hand is on it now, and I just like don't know what to do with it. I guess I could take it apart and just sort of leave it here. It is, yeah, I guess I could just like put it back. Maybe I could put it in my closet. I don't know. New York City apartments, am I right? Yeah. Yeah, I'm right. Yeah. Any other things, ideas, whatever. I'm happy that it's done. I'm so happy that it's done. It's been hanging over my head for so fucking long. One thing that I do think is kind of interesting, lightly salted baked snap peas. I was eating the like cake thing earlier, and I need something savory to offset all that sugar. What was I saying? Fuck. Yeah, I do eat raw kale, but not currently. We don't have any in the apartment. Fuck. Oh, one of the things that I think is funny about the script, and there's only a couple moments really, but there are moments that are effectively references to things that were cut out. Like, I make the statement, and at least some of this comes from my default status, right? Like I say that in talking about like eccentricity versus freakishness, and that references an even earlier version of the introduction where I talk about how I am one of the default options on a character creation screen. And so it's like, an hour and a half later, this was a callback to that idea, but that idea no longer exists. So it's just a new thought. And it's interesting for me to see that, right? And to realize that, because it's like, when writing it, because obviously it is very difficult to do this over and over. Like every test I did went faster. So like the final thing is about 6 minutes longer than all of the test runs I did, because I just spoke slower and was a little more deliberate. Also, I had someone else running the teleprompter, so they were able to follow me much more effectively than I could like handle it myself during the test runs. And I just had to follow the speed that the thing went, basically. So this, I think, is much more natural as a result of that. I could just go at the speed I felt was best. But Um, but anyway, like, you make a change to a sentence, you remove a section, whatever. It's not until you do the entire thing start to finish that you actually notice that kind of thing, right? Because like you just lose context. And so unless I was going to start to finish read this thing that took an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how fast I was doing it, it's like you just don't know what you do and don't have, which makes editing extremely difficult. And editing specifically in the context of, making sure that all of the ideas are coherent, like with each other, and that I am having more of those references to help tie things together, right? And be like, I make a reference, I talk about chatbot fueling paranoid delusions, and it's like, it's important that I make a reference to when I'm talking about my paranoia, I'd be like, it is important to make a point about that there, right? To put that here. But if you're not thinking holistically, that kind of thing just doesn't, like, you don't feel that, like, you don't notice it and you don't realize it. So it's not until you do a start to finish run through. So like in the last 2 weeks, I think I did 5 full run throughs. Like it was, and each time I realized something different, right? Like, oh, this thought doesn't work, or like I use this word too many times, or like too close together, or whatever, right? Like all of these ideas that come together. And so it is, it's important to do it, but it's also just so hard. And it just adds up, I was very glad that I had audiences for most of my run throughs. Some of them I did just do myself. Julia was audience to 2 of them in the final weeks. Was it 2 or 3? I think it was 2. And I think it had been 4 leading up to that. There's a lot of her. Yeah. Julia heard a lot of versions. Werner saw a version way earlier. Willow saw a version way earlier. Kyle and Brian heard like a version a year ago. And so it's like they heard it a year ago and then they heard the new one and they did not hear anything in between. Which, is interesting, right? So yeah, it's good. It's good. Any other thoughts? As you should. Take all the credit you want. One thing I've been wondering is, should I send the evaluators this video? I'm curious what they would think of it. Would you like one? I can give you one of the shirts. I have 3 of them. I have the black, the white, and then this one. I got probably oversized for you. Yeah, I mean, I'll bring the black one, which I didn't use. All right. Hell yeah. Let's do it. Yeah. No, it is a super cool shirt. I actually did this in the presentation, which you cannot see because I'm standing in front of it, but I didn't do it on the shirt, but in the thing I crossed out the 4 because it says RIP 2024, EST 2023, RIP 2024, and I crossed out the 4 and put in a 5. But it's like, yeah, I think it was the first time I did it. I did it for Willow and Taylor and Werner, I think. And afterwards, it was like, man, what an adventure. Aw. Yeah. It was like, what an adventure. It's like, Alex Autism Adventure, an Allistic Oddysey. And then Will was like, and then like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make that a shirt. And I was like, oh fuck yeah. You know, so yeah, no, I was like, this is awesome. And both Ryan and Kyle were like, if you make merch out of this, if you like make that into a shirt, I will buy it. So, you know, maybe I took down the merch store, but I can still buy things from it. Cause the site like something happened. I don't even remember what, but like, I think something got disconnected, and it would have taken me like a lot of time to figure out how to make it work again. And it's like, no one has bought a shirt in the last 3 years. It is not worth that. Yeah. I mean, the thing about it is, if you are willing to personally give me your credit card information and your address and whatever, I can just order it for you and have it shipped to you directly from the thing. Like that's what I did for Julia, actually, because Julia decided she wanted a shirt later, like after the store didn't work. And I was like, okay, yeah, just give me your information. Like, I didn't keep it. Like, I don't remember. But it worked. Like, it got stuck in customs for like 4 months or something like that. Yeah, no, I'm not, like, I wouldn't release your information. I don't give a shit. But yeah, that's how it would work. But if that's what you want, hit me up on Discord, and I will go through that process. That's fair. This is a heavier fabric than the one that my other merch was. It's not like heavy, but it is a different. It is a very different fabric than my other ones were. So, you know, yeah, that's what autism is, right? It's all about making friends and understanding people. Yeah, that's fair. All right. Any final thoughts? I'll put a link to the Discord, like, you know, not that it matters. I don't think there's any new people. I'm going to put the link to the Discord. I'm curious if new people will join now that we have this thing that exists. Let's see. Yeah, but I'm going to do that. Thank you all for joining me on this celebratory day. This thing is out of my life. Thank fucking God. You know, like, it's been so long. I'm looking forward to doing something else. So, thank you all. Take care.